Starting. And we are live. Hello and welcome to Fermenting Opinions. I'm your host, David Pyden.
I'm your co-host, James McVeigh.
And we are Fermenting Opinions, the podcast and Google Hangout in search of a more palatable political ferment. This is March 25th, 2019. Happy birthday to my mom and my friend from high school, Dan. I had to throw that shout out. I did. And we're here tonight to talk with a multitude of our fermenters about essentially the findings of the Mueller report. If you have been living completely under a rock, Mueller came out, delivered his report on Friday, and as of yesterday or today, this morning,
it's just yesterday,
that William Barr,
the Attorney General,
sort of gave his synopsis of what those findings were. And there's been tons of political discussion, fallout, and lots of memes. And we're here to talk about it tonight.
I'll start with asterisk. I'll asterisk the Mueller report was released to the DOJ, yes, which is essentially the William Barr, who's our Attorney General. We have no idea what the report says. There are instances in that 4-page letter that Attorney General Barr put out where he actually quotes, but really it is a synopsis for all words and purposes. There's a lot that went into that investigation over the last 675 days. We really aren't privy to most of it. We just know kind of the general conclusions and then what conclusions the Attorney General made from there. True.
And following that, we titled tonight's Hangout Nuffingberder. Or Nuffingberder. Okay, so the big takeaway is that Mueller, according to Barr, Mueller indicated no collusion between Donald Trump, his campaign, and the Russian government in terms of Russian campaign meddling. And he did also affirm that Russians absolutely did meddle in the campaign.
We knew that from his indictments.
Yeah, we knew that from his indictments. We knew that sort of independently from the intelligence community, like years before.
Yeah,
but it's been confirmed essentially. But the salient fact here is that
no one, according to the letter, no one tacitly or expressly involved directly in his campaign or Trump himself colluded with Russia or coordinated or collaborated, I believe are the terms he used. But essentially, we have the okay that there's no direct
collusion, conspiracy, whatever you want to call it. That's there's a lot going on there. Okay, you got it. Okay. Okay. All right.
So that was the first step.
Yes.
The second, there were two parts to the letter and two parts to the report, apparently. The first end was collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. No direct link found there. The next part was obstruction of justice, and Bob Mueller deferred. He basically said, there's evidence both ways. I'm not going to recommend prosecuting him independent of the DOJ restriction against prosecuting sitting presidents or indicting them. And he basically punted the ball to the DOJ to make that decision. He said, hey, I gave you the conclusions of yes and no, and that's it.
I feel like there's a pause here, but yeah, essentially that Barr followed from that, and in his synopsis that he delivered within was about 48 hours.
Yeah, it was less than
of reading, I guess, whatever this massive report saying, it was what he expressed that the American public is really interested in this, so I'm gonna give a synopsis, essentially say again no collusion, and also that.
He went on further in the letter to say he's going to release as much of it as he can over the coming months, but they have to dig through a lot of grand jury secrecy and the idea that certain federal statutes protect that and make it a crime to release.
Sure, I don't want to give a bad faith interpretation of what he said, but he also sort of went on the record there to say that he didn't find cause for accusing Trump or his campaign of obstruction.
Yes. He said there's not enough what he said was there's not enough to prosecute it beyond a reasonable doubt. He said words.
The way that this reads to me is sort of like when you do a DNA testing for, say, a sexual assault, and you get the report back from the lab. they can't. They're not going to say it's absolutely X or Y person. They're going to say it does not exclude one individual or another. And I think it sort of reads like that, at least to me. Does not conclude that the president committed a crime, but does not also exonerate him. Yeah, see, like that specifically, to me, reads very similarly.
Yeah.
It's also and this is more of the language from Barr, the Attorney General, which is it seems to me like one of the reasons they came to the conclusion they reached was because it's hard for them to see the ability for anybody, president or otherwise, to obstruct a crime that didn't occur.
Well, I don't think that they said the crime. How I read it was,
it says the investigation.
Yeah, they couldn't prove beyond reasonable doubt that Mueller, Trump
it doesn't even
colluded
say that,
with
though.
Russia.
It's
a criminal investigation, though.
Yeah, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with Russian government or its election interference activity. So that's not saying one way or another. That's just saying that it didn't establish it. That doesn't mean that they don't have any information. That just means that they may not.
That's one question. If they couldn't establish, like how much, like how close did they get to establishing it?
This goes because this to me, and I don't believe most people think this way, but it's just my thoughts. Is the most telling part of this report from William Barr is actually in the beginning, where he says, and I quote, he employed, and again he's talking about the investigation. He employed 19 lawyers, 40 FBI agents. They had over 2,800 subpoenas, executed over 500 warrants, over 230 orders of communication records, issued almost 50 orders authorizing, et cetera, et cetera. If there was an investigation that could find collusion and or, definitively see obstruction, this was it. I mean,
I don't read it that way at all. I read that as basically the same way that you read when you write out like a report for a grant or something. You say, oh, we reviewed X thousand cases, we had this many staffers associated with it, but that doesn't necessarily, to me, that's totally separate from whatever they found or did not find. It's just like a vomiting up of statistics associated with it. It has no bearing whatsoever.
It's a statement to show you that to say, hey, we did a bunch of research on this. Like
exactly,
we looked into it really hard, and this is what we found. Except what we found is a very summarized version of what it actually says.
Isn't it specific to the Russian government too?
And that's my question, Haley, and that's something that I read into this that I'm really confused about. I don't want to say confused, but something that I'm questioning is that what is the definition that Mueller used to determine coordination or collusion? And from what I read in the footnote, it's tacit or express agreement, essentially, with the Russian government by somebody on the campaign.
Yeah.
Or Trump himself. But does that exclude, Roger Stone's dealing?
I mean, exactly, because he's on that right now. Like that's what he's like. That's what, and also what's going to happen. Like that's also still Mueller's case.
Yeah, and like that's where I'm kind of confused a little bit. Is to me the wording there doesn't exclude the idea of intermediaries and middlemen.
It doesn't exclude Russian individuals, and it doesn't exclude WikiLeaks, which isn't.
Which is not a foreign government. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The idea that did WikiLeaks act as the median control in any kind of collusion?
Or, if they, so if you didn't collude with the Russian government, that's good.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
that is my most celebrated finding from all of this. The president.
I mean, I'm curious, what the extent of the evidence was, but I feel like there is just, this is a precise letter, but it actually doesn't answer very much, to me at least, just because we do still have the Stone case that's going to trial. We do still have Michael Flint hasn't been sentenced yet. That's still like a current case that's ongoing, and that isn't connected to Michael Flynn's with the. I mean, he is connected, but that's not necessarily that's sort of he's sort of a jumping point.
Haley, if I understand what you're saying, and I think I do, is that not only did Michael Flynn speak to Mueller's case directly, but he actually was an informant for other cases that haven't been disclosed that involve other agencies aside from Mueller's special counsel unit specifically.
He hasn't been sentenced yet, and it's still Mueller's case.
Yes, but my understanding was that he provided information, and Rick Gates as well as him provided information.
But that got transferred.
Yeah, that's not directly related to Mueller, but spawned from
it. The Michael Flynn case is Mueller's case. The Rick Gates one was transferred to, I don't recall where it was transferred to, but
but that's what
the Michael Flynn case is still a Mueller prosecuted case.
Essentially what I'm saying is they anticipate both Gates and Flynn are still cooperating to some degree, and it's not time to sentence them yet because let's see where the chips fall.
Yeah. So it's like so we have this report, and it just seems very limited to the Russian government. And also, you know, why didn't Mueller make a call on obstruction, or, you know, and however you want to answer that question. But also, how did Barr make the call so quickly when Mueller didn't?
Well, that's a subject of much speculation. And I think if we want to be cynical, and frankly I am, of a Trump appointee saying, rushing within 48 hours of this massive report after 2 years of investigations and multiple indictments, of going, no obstruction, we're not recommending obstruction, we know we can't charge, despite eschewing the idea of we can't charge the sitting president with a crime or whatever. Like, we're also saying no obstruction. We're saying it right now. Like, I throw that dude, I trust that dude as far as I can throw him. That doesn't necessarily mean he's wrong. I do want to see the report. I do want to be able to read it. I do think it should be publicly accessible insofar as, there's not too much that needs to be redacted in order to admit it publicly. And if Trump is innocent of basically everything that, lefty type people have accused him of with regards to Russia, there shouldn't be an issue with that, right? You want transparency. If I'm innocent, I want to do everything I can to prove I'm innocent.
Well, and
Trump, and that's not necessarily up to Trump specifically, but generally speaking.
Trump and the White House spokespeople like Sarah Huckabee Sanders and whatnot have all said, "Hey, we're on board with this. Release as much as you want."
Yeah, and that's cool. I think that's fine.
Well, it's also as much as they can. I mean, there's a lot of things that they can't release. I mean, there's going to be information in there that has the names of people that, did nothing wrong, but just their name being shown to the public is enough to smear them, and you can't have that. And they also have the grand jury information, can't legally disclose that either publicly. No matter what. I mean, when the report gets released, and I say when because I'm very confident that it's going to be released. It's going to be heavily, some of it will. Yeah, it's going to be heavily redacted, and not just for legal purposes, but just for, straightforward purposes. I mean, there's some information that you just can't release because it could smear innocent Americans.
Well, it's mostly for national security.
Oh, yeah, national security.
There's a lot. Yeah, you get the classified information filter.
You don't want to name someone who is an active informant that maybe
not just that though, but also a lot of consideration on classified information involves methods used to obtain the information, and we don't like to give away our hand on how we obtain classified information.
Sure, yeah.
So you get the filter of classified information, you get the filter of the grand jury, and you get the filter of executive privilege. You're going to see a lot of filters on this report.
Right. So again, I don't mind some things are, are redacted or have been, the lines have been blacked out a little bit here and there with regards to the specifics and names and things like that. But I think being able to show, that you can get beyond sort of the partisan assumptions about
a four-page summary of God knows how long report.
That Barr is a Trump appointee, and a lot of people are really not going to trust him just for that reason. If we can get beyond that and actually have enough documentation to show, yes, there was also not really obstruction. I'm also okay with that. I personally, I'm skeptical that there wasn't really an obstruction, based on the Comey firing.
There,
Mueller didn't make a finding. You know, he wanted to leave it up. I just don't know how someone comes to the conclusion so quickly. And, you know, at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to be super cynical about Barr. I just want to see the report.
Yeah. I agree.
I think it's real important to see the report as well. But I think obstruction is also something that's not always easy to kind of prove. I think it's important that everybody gets to see this report and to kind of take but as far as not only now are they saying they want to see the report, but they also want to see all the evidence was with it and just kind of continue some of that. But I don't think that's necessarily the direction that we should go in. And certainly transparency should be there. But
I see, and Aaron, I see what you're saying there, and I agree and disagree on many levels. The main thing here is that if we released all of the information that Mueller gathered over the last 675 days of his investigation, it would take years to comb through. I mean, we're talking 500 search warrants, right? 500 people
Mike
interviewed, several thousand subpoenas. There's a lot of information.
Is there anybody that actually believes that Barr was not privy to what the investigation's conclusions were before the report came out?
I don't think that Barr had the opportunity between his approval and taking over this investigation, theoretically, over the last month.
It's a short lag
to actually have a time to review that evidence.
That would have been day one of his job.
No, I agree. But I'm saying that even if day one, I don't know the date that he was confirmed.
It's a lot of data to process.
And he actually took the position, but I think it was about a month ago. That's a lot of data to go through. I mean, the subpoenas alone.
The
feeling if we can just like address the elephant in the room is that it feels like that was a very rushed to a lot of people, that it was a rush to conclusion, that no conclusion, which I don't think is being strongly contested.
I'm going to assume,
but then the no obstruction aspect of it.
Hang on. The only thing I want to touch on that is
seems rushed to.
We didn't get any direct quotes in the second half of that letter on obstruction like we did in the first part about collusion.
Yes.
We never quoted Mueller at all through
because Mueller didn't say no obstruction.
Yes, he did. He did. No. He stated, quote, while this report, and this is again is quoted from the Mueller report by Barr, while this report does not conclude the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. That's quoted from Mueller.
Okay, yeah.
By the way, can I segue just briefly here? Because the morning after Trump getting off of Air Force One repeated multiple times that he was exonerated by the Mueller report, which is in direct contradiction to what Mueller actually said there.
You're acting as if this is somehow just out of
no. It's
going to be like
I'm saying this for posterity.
That's just Trump. I mean, I think everybody knows that that's how Trump operates.
Trump is a liar.
But why are we okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, we're not okay.
It's not about being okay with it. It's about accepting that.
That's what it is.
It's about not being okay with it, but like I don't know. I'm not gonna like. Oh my god! And now he said he's
the practical reality is politicians are full of shit, anyways. What difference does it make if Trump's a liar or not?
Yeah, but
it matters to me.
It does matter.
I've been alive for almost 32 years.
Yeah, one at a time. We're not doing an O'Reilly factor.
I've been alive for about 32 years, and I've been following politics since I could basically talk.
Easy with that O'Reilly.
Something interesting, but I've never heard a politician lie like that. Like no one's ever in the history of the United States lied. As far as somebody I've witnessed lying, I've never seen a politician lie to this degree.
Richard Nixon.
Richard Nixon didn't lie. Richard Nixon resigned.
Richard Nixon was also full of shit on many.
I mean, not many people here are alive. Were alive when Richard Nixon.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm just
so what Jane is saying. In my 30 years or however long of listening to politics, I've never heard a politician lie.
The only person I've
as much as Trump.
The only person I've ever seen lie like that was the repeated lies that Bill Clinton told about getting his dick sucked. And I mean, I get it, but he lied, and he was directly punished for that.
Guys, I'll make this easy. I mean, this is a quote from George Carlin. I'm not going to rob this from him, and he summed it up beautifully. I mean, when it comes to politicians, especially when it comes to a vote, but when it comes to politicians in general, you got one piece of shit in one hand, you got one piece of shit in the other. It's just a matter of which smells the worst. But they're both pieces of shit. So I'm not going to say that Trump lies more or most or doesn't lie. He obviously does. But the point is Trump is Trump, and this really comes down to the obstruction point, is that Trump is Trump. So yes, Trump says a lot of stupid crap. Yes, Trump was really pissed off at this investigation publicly, and some could think of that as obstruction. This goes back to all, and I hate to circle back to this, but again, this loops back together because we're talking Trump is Trump. This circles back to the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. If Trump did this throughout his whole career and paid off dozens of women for years and years to be quiet about him banging them, which I'm sure he did, then that means it's not a campaign finance violation. That's just business as usual for Trump.
No.
Hang on. Wait.
I completely agree with that. I mean, the reality that you can take your personal money and pay whoever you want.
I don't want to get into minutia of legal analysis of whether or not Trump committed other crimes.
No, it comes to Trump.
I do not want to explore that realm. I'm not going to explore the realm of Trump's other crimes.
But I disagree with you strongly. Yes.
But I want to talk about Russian collusion, obstruction of justice.
Can I just briefly though, the fact I sort of sidebarred there briefly to say that Mueller said one thing explicitly and Trump contradicted that explicitly. It is a 180 degrees of what Mueller said, and we all go, all politicians lie. Oh, it's bad. At some point, we really ought to give a shit if the president of the United States is telling bald-faced lies to the public.
Objectively,
the fact that it's happened too many times should not be a pass for it to continue to happen. We all not okay.
Trump is
just not okay.
But what about our entertainment value? I think that's important.
but in ever since then, like all we've seen is people on the right. They're like pigs and shit right now. Like, he's completely not guilty. It's like that's not at all. That's not what it said.
Let's look at this objectively instead of subjectively. Then, so objectively, let's look at this and realize that the elephant in the room, the big kahuna, is whether or not Trump and or his campaign colluded with Russia. The answer is no. That's it.
Yeah, no,
I would say that's pretty accurate.
It comes.
One at a time,
guys. That's what Trump is talking about. I mean, yeah, Trump is going to say Trump is Trump again. He says a lot of crazy crap. This is Trump, and he's going to say he's exonerated, and he is in regards to Russia collusion. That's what he's exonerated.
You read about that, but I'm sorry, but that comes with all of those things come with an asterisk, especially his first tweet or his second tweet, I think, was
Trump comes with
his tweet was no collusion, no obstruction. Like, no, actually, Mueller said yes, obstruction. I just can't prosecute it, and I'm going to let someone else figure that out.
Didn't say yes, obstruction.
Yeah, no, he literally did. He said this does not exonerate him. Yes, there's evidence of obstruction.
But it doesn't. But there's not evidence.
No, the reality is that what it is that it's undetermined. That's all that means.
Exactly.
What he said was
undetermined.
What Barr said was that Mueller, who spent the better part of 2 years investigating whether Trump obstructed justice, ultimately decided to present evidence rather than a conclusion.
Yep. He said, here's the evidence for, here's the evidence against. I'm not going to make a conclusion. I'm going to leave it to
according to Barr, but like we can say, the one thing is, he said, I didn't reach a conclusion. That is for y'all. And
yes, so literally anybody who's ever been an attorney and had to write memos for bosses, this is what you do when you're not absolutely sure. That's exactly what you do, where you're like, hey, here's the for, here's the against. I don't know how this is going to fall. I'm going to let the boss decide.
I don't even.
So does that mean that it's reasonable doubt? Oh, sorry, I really interrupted you.
No.
Yeah, I mean, so would that mean reasonable doubt technically? Because if you have for and against evidence, and let's say they're generally equal, doesn't that make it reasonable doubt then?
Okay, no.
That's a step. That's a step farther down the line.
Much further down the line. The question of indictment, or can you prosecute somebody, or can they be impeached, for example, all that bases on probable cause, more likely than not. That's why the House only has a simple majority vote to impeach. A simple majority is your basic, I guess, model for probable cause.
Sure.
The idea more likely than not. He said, I'm not going to make that determination. You guys do it. What William Barr said was there's not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt for these things. And he said that he coordinated with Rod Rosenstein to come up with that idea.
James, you just hit what I think is the genius plan here, is that instead of firing Rosenstein, which most people believe should have happened after some things that came to light with him, they kept him on, and now his name is not only on the FISA warrant, but it's also on this.
His name was also on the document that justified firing Comey until Trump
said that he told
Russian diplomats that he fired Comey in the Russia.
So now his name is on all three of these documents.
Yeah.
So at this point now, I really think that Trump made that. Well, Trump or the people around him, because I don't think Trump is this smart, made this an either or.
I think you should also keep in mind that Rod Rosenstein didn't sign that letter and didn't put his name to it. William Barr did. And again,
well, you're talking about in regards to the
summary,
obstruction. No, Rosenstein's name is on it. He signed it.
No,
he did not.
Barr drops his name.
Yeah, but Barr says that I talked to Rod.
I thought that Rod Rosenstein was the one who recommended that Comey get fired, wasn't he?
Yes, he did, and that was a legitimate justification for firing Comey. The whole reason Mueller was appointed was because
Comey got fired.
Comey got fired, and right afterwards, Trump then said, I fired Comey to end the Russia investigation because nothing happened. And then he told Russian diplomats, Comey's a nut job. I fired him to get this pressure off of me about this Russia investigation. Then Comey leaked his memos that he wrote.
Yep.
And now you have a special prosecutor.
Hold on. Now, unless there's something I don't know about, and that's more than likely, I don't remember Trump saying that he fired Comey to stop the investigation.
Yes,
I heard
Lester Holt.
Specifically, yes.
Yeah, like
the interview with Lester Holt.
He certainly wanted the Attorney General to protect him.
One at a time, guys. One at a time.
I heard that he fired him over the investigation, and he ended up clarifying that over the investigation because Comey told him privately that Trump was not being investigated, and he wouldn't publicly say it. So being fired for an investigation is not the same as being fired to stop an investigation.
No, okay, here's what the reason Mueller was appointed again was because he fired Comey.
McCabe.
Rod Rosenstein wrote a report about the mishandling of the Clinton investigation, about why it was bad and it didn't follow department guidelines, and recommended him being fired. And that was fine. That's why Comey was fired. And if it had been left at that, there would have never been a special investigator. That shit would not have happened. The problem is the next day, or even that night, I can't remember which, he was on, I think, ABC.
Lester Holt.
Yeah, with Lester Holt. Yep. And he told Lester Holt, I fired Comey because of the Russia investigation.
Because of that Russia thing.
Yeah, because of the Russia thing. And then the next day, he legitimately told Russian diplomats, I got rid of this nut job because I wanted this over with. Like, there was too much to the White House. All the pressure is off of me now. We can negotiate better. Like, he said those words, and that sent the intelligence community and anybody who actually matters in justice in DC into a tailspin. They were like, what the shit is this? Yeah. Now you get a special prosecutor.
Which is why I just wonder how close, like he said, like he couldn't, like how I understand, it's a criminal investigation. And he, Mueller ultimately decides, like, I can't prove this and everything, but how close did he get to proving it?
That's why, and
I mean, like, there's so much obvious stuff out there.
Yeah,
and I think a little bit farther down that line, though. I mean, I don't think that it even goes that far, saying, "Oh, I didn't have enough evidence." I think at this point, it just says that it does not exonerate him. It's a whole Nuffingberder.
I think
the report.
Muller's saying that it's not my call.
And that's why we need the report to just see how close he was. And I mean, that certainly should be disclosed. I mean, the reality is we put something dangling over the president's head for 2 years. At least American people have the right to know what it was and even how close that they were to ever coming to any conclusion.
At the same time, I'm somewhat reticent to think that we should be that transparent about it.
Yeah, same here.
Because I think too much information in the wrong hands, i.e. people who don't understand the intricacies of it or the nuance of it, are going to take it off into a tangent.
But that's happening already. That's happening now.
Sure it is.
But I'm not sure if the solution is, You
don't open up your case file and just toss it all over for people.
It's going to get fun no matter what.
it's going to happen no matter what happens. I mean, the key here is to at least give us something to parse, at least give us something to think about, at least provide a framework that we do need to prosecute in the future. We have the ability to. Because we have a buildup of evidence over time.
Yeah,
one of the questions that I have is, why didn't Mueller ever talk to Trump? I know that he gave the written questions.
I think he did.
He would have played to the fifth.
Hang on, written questions. I actually read an article about this. Again, these are leaks from people who are claiming to be anonymous.
They disclosed the written questions.
No, not that part. I'm saying that they talked about the people within DOJ that worked for Mueller, according to whoever the hell this article was that I read today, was saying that this was a huge fight in the Mueller camp of whether or not to subpoena him for a grand jury, and it was like this big discussion where they finally decided, like, look, it's not worth the turmoil. He's not going to sit for it. We don't have to worry about it. Like, let's not do this.
I mean, so they submitted written questions, but Trump, not even for a grand jury, he never sat down for an interview.
Exactly.
And that's just another wrinkle to me of why, I understand that it's this issue of intent and everything whenever it comes to, I'm specifically thinking about obstruction of justice. So, how can Barr reach the conclusion about whether Trump intentionally obstructed of justice or not when we don't ever, like, Trump's never been interviewed?
And I bet that probably comes up in the report, I would assume. But the main thing here is that while Rudy Giuliani is a fucking moron, I don't think Jay Sekulow is. And I'm pretty sure Jay Sekulow was like, yo, if you talk to Mueller, he's going to hang you because every third word out of your mouth is an outright lie.
I mean, I actually...
that is wise counsel. If you cannot not lie.
Yeah, you have a Fifth Amendment right not to testify. You should probably fucking take it.
Yeah,
sorry. Go ahead, Haley. Sorry.
I mean, I do litigation and everything, and so there's like certain strategies, and I like this as I've been following this and everything. I've actually thought a few times, like it was like they've been able, the fact that they did those like controlled written questions and that he responded, I was like, they're never going to be able to argue anything in front of a judge to establish that they have, an express need to do this interview whenever they've done these written questions. Like, these written questions really shot them in their foot from just like a strategy standpoint.
I think they finally just demurred on that. Like, really, it's so much political turmoil, and it's such a huge thing that distracts from the actual point of the investigation.
But it's not even that. It's just if you're trying to argue, I need to interview this person. And, you have done these controlled questions, these controlled written questions, which were well written and everything, and they responded. And you're trying to like push to compel to get an interview. And it's like, well, what are you going to ask? That wasn't in the controlled questions. You don't want to reveal your hand, for one. And like, what can you really say?
Yeah, you can't.
If you've taken this amount of effort, and they did that relatively early on in, the investigation. I think they did it like approximately a year ago.
The written questions happened in like November. I
thought it was longer than that, but also the news has been.
Yeah, I know. It's just
the important thing to consider here is, I mean, again, the investigation was going on for almost 2 years. I mean, all the people, all the indictments, all the witnesses interviewed, all the subpoenas. I mean, just keep on going. And then Mueller sees Trump, who from day one has been so opposed to this, and he's done this for so long and looked at so much information and can't establish that he colluded with Russia or anyone in his campaign. So now he's like, well, here I have, what do they call him? Individual one. Who has been adamant that he didn't do anything. I can't find that. Well, I'm sorry. I can't establish that he did anything. And if I even get to sit down with him, A, he knows the questions already. B, he's probably going to plead the fifth anyway. And C, most importantly, he has seen what's happened to people around him that have sat down with investigators. And what happened to a bunch of them? A lot of them got indicted, not for colluding, but for lying to investigators. So why in the world would he want to? And even if he wanted to, why would he not plead the fifth? I mean, you'd be out of your mind to not plead the fifth when you're again
it's bad
putting yourself
it's bad PR.
Yeah, but hang on. Two thoughts. One, you cannot plead the fifth unless it directly implicates you in a crime. So when you plead the fifth, that is you saying, I'm not going to give you information that will lead to my indictment or that will be used against me in a criminal proceeding. That's a tacit admission that you did something wrong. If you're the president of the United States and you're not worried about being indicted, but you're worried about your public image, you don't want to plead the fifth. Pleading
I don't think that's technically correct.
I'm not justifying Trump's case. I'm justifying Mueller.
That's
why he stopped the investigation.
You can't use a Fifth Amendment plea in that sense unless it might possibly go towards your criminal investigation negatively. Cannot. That's the point of the Fifth Amendment. You can't self-incriminate if you don't want to. You're not forced to do it.
Can I ask a meta question here? Did we feel as though the Mueller investigation needed to or is supposed to find criminal involvement on the part of Trump or the Trump campaign?
That it needed to?
Anybody else? Yeah. Was that the expectation, essentially? Or should it have been?
I don't know what should have, but I expect something more.
I think that the objective review of the situation is what I expected, and I don't know about anybody else, but if the information showed nothing, then it showed nothing.
Yeah, I mean that was my take. It was more like I wanted an accountability buddy, you know. So I didn't want it to be partisan. I wanted, I want I like checks and balances.
Yeah.
So
if I may ask, what is your take? I mean, do you honestly think that this letter from Barr is objective? I mean, do you think that it actually reflects what the investigation has? Because when I'm reading it, I'm kind of wondering if there's a certain amount of spin.
I'm skeptical, and I don't know for certain. I don't want to go ahead
because the way that it's written to me.
Barr.
Well, I think it's going to be important to recognize here that he knows that he's going to get pulled in front of Congress for this. He knows that he's going to be asked a ton of questions on this. I think that if he did try to spin this in a way, he'd just be a complete moron.
Hang
on.
Stop. Wait, let's clarify just one thing. I want Drew to go back and clarify because he was still in the process of saying something.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I think the issue is not that he spun it in a way like, not in the Sean Hannity sense of spinning things, but more in the professional prosecutorial end of I'm putting words to paper that I can't be hanged for, but give a certain light to things in this one direction.
It would be bad PR to do it that way, to spin things politically, in such a manner. And I mean, it could also lead to indictments on his part for, doing
that's
something
great
if he lied.
That's great and all, but I don't have a certain amount of confidence in Barr.
Yeah, he's issued that memo before he was the AG. We can talk about his past acts, but he issued a memo months ago, outsider eyes, saying that he, thought that the Mueller investigation was fatally flawed. After 2 years of Mueller's investigation, he gets his report, and this hand-picked attorney general who has written about how he thinks everything is fatally flawed looks at the evidence in the report in less than 48 hours and says, nope, Trump didn't obstruct justice.
If I may, and I'll go to you after this, James. Trump wasted very little time in telling a complete bald-faced lie about the Mueller findings, right? As I had pointed out earlier, and whether or not we care about the fact that public officials just lie to us,
sure,
is immaterial to this. He didn't waste a second to tell a giant lie and control the narrative through that lie. Do we actually expect different from Barr?
Wait, I kind of want to back up just a little bit back to Barr.
That's the question.
I want to go back to Barr. If no one remembers his time in the AG's office before this.
With HW?
He was also instrumental in getting pardons for pretty much everybody involved in Iran-Contra.
Yep.
Yeah.
Barr was? Oh, my God.
No, Barr orchestrated the.
I didn't actually know that.
I mean, like.
Yeah. While it's true that you don't have to trust him, the fundamental problem here is whether he made political error by operating the way he has, and if it's going to have great negative effects in the long term, or all those things. And then on top of that, he's somewhat right that there are fatal flaws in the Mueller investigation only because of the political nature surrounding it.
Well, I don't think you can necessarily just go and say, well, he tweeted this and he said that, because we've all known that his Twitter is oftentimes full of some shit. I mean,
who? Barr? Who are you talking about?
Wait, hang on. What about Barr or Trump? And I want to ask this is a specific question because Barr, I don't know if you guys actually read the memo that he submitted to the DOJ. His argument was that the obstruction of justice investigation was premature. That's really what he was saying. The DOJ had no business to be involved in an obstruction of justice charge.
And I kind of agree with that.
I'm going to go back to Aaron here. Everyone clear the floor. Aaron, please go ahead.
And I kind of agree with that. I mean, the reality is that we have a president that was going to the FBI director who was sitting there saying, am I under investigation? He was telling him, no, you are not, but we know that he was. And we also know that the DOJ was also conspiring against them. I mean, I'm not sitting there trying to say that there was a big conspiracy within the whole organization, but the FBI director definitely wasn't being forthcoming with him when he was telling him he was, and saying, hey, okay, well then publicly exonerate me, and he wouldn't do it.
Hang on. I think this is an important distinction because Comey talked about this in his testimony, and it kind of goes towards understanding how criminal prosecution on a federal level works. Comey wouldn't say publicly that Trump was not a target of the investigation because no one was sure if Trump was going to be a target of the investigation or not. Like, that's why he wouldn't say that. He told the president,
who didn't
he told the president, you're not a target of the investigation, which was true at the time. But Comey has no way to know where the investigation is going to lead, and probably at least a little bit suspected Trump might become a target of the investigation. He wasn't going to say publicly, you're not the target of the investigation. That made complete sense. That's kind of how it works as a prosecutor and somebody who's in a position where somebody more powerful than you that you might be investigating, or you're investigating the fringes of what they do. You don't want to give them one word or the other. I mean, damn, you're investigating this. You can't just start tipping your hat and be like, no, Mr. President, you're all good. No, it's saying that right now you're not a target of this investigation, which is what Comey said that's his version of the events. Trump's version of the events you can't really trust because, again, Trump lies about everything. But Trump's version was, hey, this guy told me I'm not involved, and he wouldn't say it publicly, so I fired him. But that's not the actual justification used to fire Comey. The justification used to fire Comey was that he mishandled the Clinton investigation, which is true.
Twitter, he's exaggerated on Twitter a lot. I think we all can agree on that. It wasn't
just on Twitter. That was
he said that.
Multiple. He did also say he said that to a bunch of different people.
Go ahead, though. Go ahead.
Look, the big thing. I mean, obviously, when it comes to Comey, Trump needed nothing more than a banana peel to slip on. I mean, everybody wanted Comey fired. The Democrats were screaming for him to get fired after what he did a week before the 2016 election.
Sure,
everybody. It was bipartisan. Everybody wanted him fired.
And I completely agree with you. And Rosenstein's memo for that was
that ubiquitous.
I don't know if it was ubiquitous or not, but Rosenstein's memo. I really
don't, because I've heard
Rosenstein's memo was solid ground to fire him on.
Yeah.
The problem therein was when Trump started saying other shit that had nothing to do with it.
When Trump opened his mouth, that's where he always gets.
That's how you get an investigation, because
always gets into trouble.
I mean, that's.
So does that mean that Twitter is prosecutable now? That Twitter is like a way to find out if someone's guilty?
Yeah, it's a way to trigger an investigation. I mean, when you run your mouth, yes, Twitter and Facebook and every other piece of social media has been used.
I mean, it's evidence.
It's been used to hang people for running their fucking mouths for investigations forever.
Also, I mean, like people have been like, think about what happened
aware of that one.
So one at a time, guys. One at a time.
I mean, Congresswoman Omar, she tweeted some things, and look at how people reacted.
You get hanged for it because when you run your fucking mouth, people get suspicious.
Yeah,
all you need to investigate facts and to actually open an investigation is reasonable suspicion, which ain't shit. Suspicion I can articulate.
Trump tweets are also a matter.
Trump says, "I wanted to end the Russia investigation."
Public statements like that's also a thing.
Yeah, I am not discounting what Trump has said publicly, both on camera or on Twitter. I'm not saying any of that, but
justification for what Mueller appointment. I mean, that's justification. There it is.
Correct.
You already did it. You started an investigation yourself by running your mouth. If he hadn't said shit, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Correct. However, now this comes to the other side of the conversation, which is the Barr review, which is what we talked about, and we got sidebarred into Comey, which is if you really think that Mueller is going to sit by quietly after what his reaction to that BuzzFeed story and not say anything if Barr is lying. If Barr is lying about what his findings are, what his conclusion is, Mueller would have been immediately heard saying, no, this guy is full of shit. Trump or him or whatever is corrupt.
Hang on.
It would be instant. It would be instant. But Mueller is silent. Mueller is being quiet. Now I'm not saying that we got the full truth here. That's not what I'm saying. But if you think that Barr is just flat out lying about his conclusions with the report, no. I mean, I'm sorry, just no. Like that's not feasible here.
I don't think anyone asserted that, but I'm going to punt in the direction of Haley and Drew, and whoever wants to catch it can.
I'll let Drew go.
Drew, you were already on.
It's a strategic move. You don't go off and shoot your mouth when you have all this information. Yeah. You're going to keep things quiet. You're going to shore up your case. And if you have something else that you want to do, you'll talk about it when it's important, and you can get them. You don't just spout off. You don't spout off and be stupid about it.
Yeah, he contradicted the BuzzFeed story about
immediately.
Yeah,
immediately. It was like hours.
Because there was an ongoing investigation, and they were talking about documents being held within the investigation.
Yeah, it was the only time the Mueller report came out and contradicted a media report because it was blatantly false. It was a lie. There was no question about it. Somebody either twisted a fact or made up something. And he came out immediately.
What he said was he didn't give them any information about that.
Well, yeah, that's a very limited response.
Yes.
It's a much you have to understand there's a certain nuance going on here.
And so what I want to jump in with really quickly is
let Drew finish.
I'm good. You go. You take it ahead.
Sorry, Drew. I'm sorry. What I was going to say was if you've never written something that's subject to public disclosure that's going to be scrutinized, like that is going to be scrutinized in this situation, you can very much spin facts without doing anything crazy. You can take them and phrase them in a way that's going to lead to a conclusion that's not going to make you lying or wrong. And I think that's what happened with Barr's report. I mean, I think there's evidence of that throughout, especially with the idea of, hey, Mueller didn't give us one way or the other on obstruction. I'm going to make this conclusion, less than 48 hours later.
Yeah,
I consulted with Rod Rosenstein. He didn't sign this letter. He didn't sign off on it, but I'm going to name drop him and say this is what happened.
I mean, the turnaround was just so quick.
Yeah. I don't know how he makes that decision that fast.
He goes on spouting all these statistics about the report. I mean, about the investigation. Then all of a sudden, boom, within 24 hours, he has a 4-page letter that tells you basically nothing.
Because he knew beforehand.
I know.
He knew beforehand. It damns your conclusion to say that this thorough investigation happened, and I looked at it for 48 hours, and I've got this. So
what he does is he name drops Rod.
Exactly.
Him too.
Yeah, and Rod refuses to sign the letter. Like
the problem is, just as it is in highly editorialized journalism, is that Barr comes across as editorializing the findings of this investigation.
Sure,
and that's what makes all of us suspicious.
But I don't know if that's fair. I think what it is that he isn't telling us, really that much by his letter. He is making a statement, and then you can jump to your own conclusion, based off this statement.
Okay,
so
hang on, but that's more. It's more or less what I'm saying, though, is that we're saying we don't have a lot of information, but we have the conclusions he's drawn that he's come to very quickly based on things that he claims to know and that nobody else does. That screams of editorializing.
Not necessarily. It's not necessarily editorializing, though. That's just.
But we just don't know. Yeah. We just don't know if it is or not.
To give attorney.
Well, that's why we need the report to be public, and then this is all going to come back out. I don't think anybody honestly believes that they're not going to get it. It has pretty much bipartisan support to give the report
and to give.
So the way that I think about it is this way. I've said this before. Sometimes I depose people who are either here not legally or they're immigrants or something like that, and I'm using a translator. And one of the things that I will state is my husband and I are currently going through the immigration process. And usually that leads the person who I'm deposing to jump to whatever conclusion they have, and they become friendlier to me. They open up, they say more things. They think I'm married to someone from Central America. I'm not, and also he lived in Mexico and he transferred here. I was like, yeah. And so all of this stuff is actually based in Mexico. So I actually know some of the other terminology, but I haven't actually said where my husband is from. They've jumped to their own conclusions about it and everything. Here, he has said, and I doubt he said anything that is a lie.
As
that's
long
stupid.
as he's not a Swede.
But he might also be a Muslim. You don't know.
Yeah, right? No, yeah.
Anyway, but no, Haley, that was a perfect example. That's a great way to put this.
I don't think Barr
said is inaccurate. No, and that's the same. You're absolutely right. That's the same thing.
But Barr allows people to come to a completely inaccurate conclusion.
Well, hang on. Is the conclusion inaccurate or not? If it wasn't guided that way, was it guided that way? It wasn't really guided that way.
Not necessarily.
I say it to guide people. I am saying it to guide
my
people.
Point. Yes, I understand. But William Barr is not going to tell you he said it to guide somebody. He's going to say,
I would never no.
Yeah, exactly.
But what I'm saying is I doubt there's any lie in Barr's statement. But
sure, I agree with that.
I totally think that it is highly selective to encourage people to come to a certain conclusion that might not necessarily be what is the ultimate correct conclusion.
Yeah, anybody who saved Ollie North's bacon, I don't really trust him.
Right,
I'm just gonna say that.
Fair. So essentially, the accusation of this is a cherry-picked rendition of what was in the report according to Barr.
I'd say that's my view. Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that you can trust the words.
Drew, I didn't know you were such a liberal.
I'm not.
No.
I'm pretty center of the road.
Yeah, this is.
I am too, and everyone thinks I'm a crazy liberal.
I'm when it comes
pretty
to
center
gun rights,
myself.
I'm far probably rightish on that.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. Drew's center right, like I am. I'm straight up with Drew here. I wanted Drew here, and I'm so glad you're here, Drew, for this exact reason.
I was being overtly
not everybody who leans right
apparent.
Is crazy about this stuff. There's a lot to unpack.
Or left. Not everybody who leans left is crazy about this either.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
that are not. That's why. I've made comments previously. I made one that was bad today. But there's a difference between the leftists and liberals. There's a difference between the left and the radical left. There are differences, and we have to be clear on those differences. Just like there's a difference between the right and the alt-right. Just because somebody's right does not mean they're alt-right.
True leftists are going to tell you that liberals get the wall just along with the conservatives.
But bottom line, I agree with Haley. I totally agree with Haley. There are ways that you could put things, that you could make statements that help your cause, that are not technically lies, but they help your cause. And by how you put them.
They're not. I don't think there's probably anything in there that is a lie.
No,
he would be stupid to lie. But I think that it was, I do lean to think that it's strategic wording.
Less is more, and if you're vague, you can let anybody take whatever conclusions they want.
Exactly, exactly, and that goes back to individual one. That goes back to Trump.
Yeah. Now, hang on. I don't want to. Again, I do not want to go back into the Cohen stuff.
No, not Cohen. No. This is nothing.
That's where he was. That's where he was named as individual one.
Yeah. Well, but
you don't want to get into that.
Let him finish.
All I'm saying is what Haley is referencing is absolutely correct, and this is what Trump does. This is just what he does. He spews a lot of garbage, but like him or not, he's good at twisting words. He's really good at twisting words. No, I don't think anybody can deny that. And what he did with his no collusion, no obstruction, period, that's what he did. He twisted those words. Like everyone says, he said no obstruction. That's a lie. Well, no, that's not a lie. Technically, there was no obstruction in the report. Now, can there be? Well, we'll see.
We don't know it's in the report.
I was going to say, I don't want to say that he's good at twisting words. I want to say that his allies are. Donald Trump speaks, the investigation, and then the other people who are smarter than him actually twist it in a way that gets digested by the masses.
He plays that game, though, too. I mean,
I think he would be a nightmare to depose.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's ever found that, though. He's been deposed hundreds of times, and he gets
is why he'd be a nightmare.
But he gets shat on every time he gets deposed. Like,
I don't know what depositions you've read or what.
So here's the thing. We can go. Let's go sort of top level with this. For me, and because this is all about. Really, we're all here tonight because there's a lot of people we're really sure, Mueller's going to come out with, he definitely colluded with Russians and he's obstructing justice and he's horrible, awful guy, impeach, right? That's why we're here, right?
Let's be honest. Refrain from that because that's fucking ridiculous.
Right. And I assent to that. For myself, at least, I don't want to see Trump get reelected. The idea that the Mueller investigation was going to turn up something that was going to be damning to Trump for 2020 that never factored into the strategy I've envisioned. So it doesn't particularly harm me or offend me or hurt my feelings or trigger me or anything else. The fact that he was not,
I think we all knew what was going to happen at the end of this anyway. I mean, objectively, I think that it was going to be a Nuffingberder from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way.
But I would say I didn't know that, and I wasn't gonna. I was not willing to plant a flag either way.
I don't know. I really. Think
we titled this thing Nuffingberder.
Hang on, wait, right? But okay, let me go back and correct myself because there are recordings here from the get-go that we've been running Fermenting Opinions since this investigation began.
Sure.
Our Bill Browder testimony episode was a huge thing. Like that was something. What I'm going to say is that during that, after Bill Browder's testimony, actually was put out there, I really thought that Trump Tower meeting was going to fuck them. I really thought that was your smoking gun.
I don't think that it necessarily hasn't yet.
Oh, okay. And now I don't want to get into that either.
No, Haley, I agree with you there. I do want to get.
But I mean, that's the thing. That's with the suggestive thing with the Barr letter and everything. It actually doesn't tell us very much. It says a limited amount. It's very short. It says a limited amount of things, and it allows you to read more into it and jump to certain conclusions. And it's probably in
the tower.
Are you speaking to collusion or obstruction? Because if you're speaking to collusion,
I'm actually talking about both, but collusion's at the heart of it. What I'm talking about, I've posted about this and gone on rants, and I did a whole podcast where essentially David asked me questions and I talked about Bill Browder's testimony.
It was one of our earlier.
It was one of my favorite podcasts.
It was a really good one too.
Yeah, it was just the two of us talking, but. Man, that Bill Browder testimony is really compelling, and the entire world believes it. Really, and it explains a lot. And not only that, but
hold on a second. Hold on a second. There's whether or not there is deliberate, direct collusion of Trump is talking to Putin's people or Trump administration officials.
I think that would be extremely hard to prove.
Right. It would be extremely hard to prove. Whether or not that happened doesn't mean at all that these individuals involved don't see the involvement of the Russian government in the election and are providing a tit for tat.
I mean, Putin himself received over $200 million in payments just by Donald Trump replacing
the settlement. Right.
Oh yeah. The Bill Browder settlement.
And that is why I said initially.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot that to me looks real fucking.
It doesn't require.
But that is why I said initially that this was, it seems like extremely specific to the Russian government, and it's not, like there is.
And Mueller's finding.
And so that's the thing with suggestion. You say with the Russian government, you make it specific, you include stuff in a footnote, but all you see is no conclusion with Russia, with Russia, and you sort of lump in Assange and WikiLeaks and Russian individuals and some of the oligarchs who aren't elected officials in Russia, but who represent lending institutions and everything. So, so that's why it's suggestive, because it seems like a very limited thing.
Russian oligarchs based on human rights abuses. Sergei Magnitsky was tortured to death in prison. These are facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, no. Yeah, exactly. To frame Bill Browder.
Right. To frame Browder.
Well, let's remember two key things. My apologies. I just realized I interrupted both of you. Two key things. One, we need to remember how Russia operates and how they've historically operated.
Yeah, we know that.
Both from Soviet Union all the way up to now. Really, technically, since Russian imperial power, aka World War I-ish era. And then the other thing that we need to also keep in mind is that it is also within the realm of possibility that you could be intentionally vague in your summaries, much like corporate language. If you've made a step like that, and that's also a possibility. Does that mean I completely aspire to it? Not completely, but it is.
That's an exact description. That's an exact description of what we were all describing with Barr on the vagary. I mean, that's perfect. It's the idea of corporate vagary.
Barr. Sorry,
I don't want to lie about what I'm saying, but I want to spin it in a certain way. And here it is.
Here's the two sides of things. Barr has made summations based on vagaries, and Mueller has been extraordinarily parsimonious in the findings he's presented, right? Because Mueller, he's as far as I can tell, as far as I can read into it, his intentions and what have you, is that he wants the work he's done to be regarded as legitimate and not part of some partisan narrative. Okay, he wants to say, here's the things I found. These are established fact. And you guys can fucking kill each other over it afterwards if you really want to.
Figure it out.
But here's the work I've put in the last 2 years. This is what reality is. You guys go do with it what you will. Okay. And he's gonna fade into the sunset. He's riding off into the sunset.
He did that with obstruction. He did that with obstruction, not with collusion though. He didn't do that with collusion.
And again, I don't want to get too deep.
It was a fair assessment on his part, though.
I don't want to get too deep into that
unless we've been completely lied to.
Hang on, we run into the question of who is involved in the Trump campaign and that definition that William Barr used. Mm-hmm. We already know that WikiLeaks is not a foreign government, so we know that on the other end of it, WikiLeaks doesn't count. The next question is. That they're not. And the next question is, who do we consider to be involved in this campaign? Does Donald Trump Jr. count? Because was he involved in the campaign?
We know what he said about Roger Stone. Definitely not involved in the campaign.
Roger Stone himself specifically has said, since if you want to go watch the Netflix documentary on him, Get Me Roger Stone, specifically about this, where Paul Manafort and Donald Trump sat for interviews for it. But if you want to watch that on Roger Stone's influence, he's specifically said, and has everybody else, he wasn't actually involved in the campaign. He was involved early on, and he wasn't actually paid or involved in it at all.
But he wasn't indicted on.
He was an agent. He calls himself
at one point
provocateur.
Yes, yes. Stone is a provocateur, but Stone was not indicted on activities that occurred during the 2016 campaign.
Yes,
yes, he was.
Yes, he was. Oh my
God. That's exactly what he was indicted for.
He was indicted for lying and being involved in the transfer of documents.
He
was indicted for lying. He was indicted for lying.
His conversations with WikiLeaks.
He was indicted for lying.
One time WikiLeaks was considered, this great liberal hero. Now it's considered, some great enemy. Which one
does that have to do with anything?
The reality is that WikiLeaks is a nuanced journalistic organization, just like every other nuanced.
WikiLeaks, to me, WikiLeaks is a strong arm of the Russian government. I mean, that's what WikiLeaks is. So WikiLeaks that's just what they do. But Roger Stone was charged for lying after the fact. He lied to investigators after the 2016 election. He was not charged with crimes that he committed during the election. He was charged with lying.
All of that relates to. I don't care if you want to say he wasn't charged with colluding with the Russian government or with WikiLeaks.
He wasn't.
But he was charged with lying about it. Like he's covering
and destroying it.
Covering something up, destroying evidence. I mean, like he's charged with a lot, man. That narrative.
I'm not saying that Stone's innocent. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that.
And every Russian or like every indictment that Mueller's put out, they're all speaking indictments, meaning they tell an elongated story they don't have to tell for this purpose. It's not going in the report. It's there for the American people to see. That's the reason Mueller gave.
Yeah, and that gets me to the Barr letter. No one from the Trump campaign colluded with the Russian government, but yet we have this pending case against Roger Stone, who maybe doesn't fall into the definition of someone in the, as defined in the Barr letter. Somebody falls into the definition of a member of the Trump campaign because they've all said that,
or the Russian government. I mean,
and he falls out, which
But hang on.
I mean, that's an ongoing case.
This is Mueller we're talking about. If there was evidence that Stone colluded with WikiLeaks and or Russia, that he colluded with them, that he coordinated with them, why would Mueller not have that in the report, and why would he not be indicted on that?
He was indicted on it.
They're still panning that out right now.
Wait. There's direct evidence of that.
He's not indicted on colluding with WikiLeaks or conspiring with WikiLeaks or Russia. He was indicted on the lying.
He wasn't indicted on it, but I'm saying there's direct evidence of that. And I'm sure Michael Cohen, who gave that direct evidence, gave it to Mueller too. He specifically testified in front of Congress again, and I mean, you can talk about his credibility, whatever.
Wasn't he indicted on perjury charges and not?
Hang on, stop though. I want to continue. Snitches usually lie. That's how they work. They're lying about their snitching, or they lied beforehand and now they're snitching. But either way, he specifically said that Donald Trump got a phone call from Roger Stone about this exact thing. I mean, the question is, are you guys familiar with drug deals and how some drug deals work, that sometimes you use intermediaries and you don't just say, I'm talking to the guy who's going to give me 25 tons of heroin or whatever, but I'm working through an intermediary who's going to broker the deal. That's essentially Roger Stone's position was, and Julian Assange's position was. I mean, the same people. The idea is that you have the Russian government who hacked these emails, which we have proof of, and we've agreed that all happened. They have the emails. The emails were then released through WikiLeaks. But before the emails are released through WikiLeaks, you have an intermediary who's directing the release of them, who is also coordinating with Trump.
What evidence? What evidence do you have that Stone was coordinating with WikiLeaks as to when and how to release?
That'd be Michael Cohen's testimony. However, not just that. Hang on.
Well, it's not just that.
I know it's not just that, but you can question that. That's fine. My point is that you have Mueller specifically breaking all of this out and saying, hey, WikiLeaks had this information. They were organization one. If you want to use individual one, talking about organization one.
Totally agree.
They were the ones who had the information. Some senior Trump official, according to those indictments that had nothing to do with Roger Stone, well before Roger Stone, coordinated with them for the release. You have Michael Cohen testifying before Congress, and again, he lied and he committed perjury. You can discount him if you want to, but he specifically said, "Yeah, I was there when a phone call was taken. When Trump didn't say one thing or the other, Roger Stone told him, hey, these are coming. And then Donald Trump said, wouldn't that be great?
Okay, yeah. So that's I
don't know if you're familiar with how RICO works or how mob bosses work or any of this shit, but this is how you prosecute these things.
First of all, my last name is Chavello, and I'm from North Jersey, so I get you. Two,
you should probably stop talking there.
I get what you're saying. However, there are some key aspects that we have to consider before we jump the gun over Barr.
I'm not trying to jump a gun over Barr. I'm just.
I know you're not. I know you're not.
I know you're not. I'm just saying that like these things happened, and we already have them, and there's a reason Mueller used speaking indictments.
Correct.
Tell the story that could be unclassified.
But there's also another possibility that some people don't seem to want to consider, which is maybe Russia, which is wrong. I mean, them interfering with our elections is really damn close to a start of war. It's not there, but it's damn close. Maybe they just didn't want Hillary to become the president of the United States. They hated Hillary. They wanted Trump. They offered help to Trump, and Trump in his campaign says, you know what, we can't do this. Maybe. I'm not saying yes, not saying no. I'm just saying maybe. And they said, fine. What you're not going to take our help. But what they did, they went through WikiLeaks. WikiLeaks hacked the DNC. They got the emails, and then they told Stone, hey, we got these emails. We're going to release them Friday next week. Stone says, okay. So Stone goes to Trump. Hey, WikiLeaks has these emails. They're going to release them next week. Well, all right, cool. That's not collusion. That's not collusion. That's just
right. That's not criminal collusion.
That raises the question in the definition Barr gave of was there tacit coordination? That's tacit coordination. You just described tacit coordination.
But it's not with the Russian. No, that's not with the Russian government. It's not with the Russian government, though.
There's no evidence of that. That's worst case scenario, and there's no evidence of that.
Yeah,
there is.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like, there's no evidence of that, and that's worst case scenario based on what we know. It's going nowhere. I mean,
I don't want to beat a dead horse, and I'm right with you. I'm right there with you, and I'm not trying to beat a dead horse. I understand, and I accept the idea that no one in the Trump campaign expressly or tacitly colluded, like, okay, cool, with a foreign government. But the question again is raised, was there a middleman, and what does that mean? And
it's not just that. Going back to the Bill Browder thing, the Russian government, you know, the sanctions that are imposed under the Magnitsky Act and everything aren't necessarily applicable to Russian governments. They are applicable to private individuals' assets that are able to be seized by the American government.
Absolutely.
And there are very, very rich people who are in Russia who do not constitute the Russian government, who have a definite, extreme vested interest in anyone who is going to be in a position of power to lift these kinds of sanctions. And they're going to utilize other outside resources, such as WikiLeaks. And so if I am an owner of, you know, a massive oil drilling company and also, you know, probably, you know, have let some human rights violations slide a little bit, I'm going to have a vested interest in, you know, someone like Donald Trump over Hillary getting rid of these sanctions so I can continue drilling for oil and storing all my money up in these offshore accounts and not having it seized by the U.S. federal government.
And like, I mean, I too have seen The Sopranos. Like, when someone goes against my organization, I'm not going to shoot them myself. I'm going to hire somebody to do that who's going to keep their fucking mouth shut and get paid.
Yeah, I think Haley brought up a lot of great points in that. But I also think that there has to be an acknowledgement that nobody has gained more from this Russian activity, I guess you could say, than Russia themselves. I mean, their goal has been immensely accomplished in creating division like we've probably never seen before.
Okay,
and at some point, I wish people would step back and say, well, we're literally giving them exactly what they were wanting. I mean, they were wanting to debalance our system of government, and they've succeeded at better anything since they've done since the Cold War.
Yeah.
So I personally don't think that like Russian individuals really give that much of a shit about like.
But Russia, he means Russia as the government in the country, Putin.
Absolutely, Haley, agree. But the government, Putin, KGB does.
I actually think that the Magnitsky, am I pronouncing it correctly? Magnitsky Act, that, heavily impacted Russian billionaires, not Russia, but Russian billionaires.
That's Putin's concern. I mean, Putin.
I mean, it is Putin's concern, and
it's also his own people that goes into his pockets. Yes, and he got 200 million of that back when the Trump Foundation, not Trump Foundation, sorry, the Trump administration, hard to confuse it too. When the Trump administration dropped that case and settled it, that was a slam dunk easy win. It was the basis of 180 countries following this global Magnitsky Act.
Well, and so something to keep in mind too, the Trump Tower meeting, it had people who were affiliated with Putin, but none of the Russians who were present were actually any kind of member in any kind of government position. The lawyer there was a corporate attorney. Yep. The other person there was the son of a pop star.
You had a translator who was also a bodyguard, who was also former KGB. You had former exactly.
Right. And the KGB is technically doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
There wasn't any Russian government representation there.
If I could interject, please, it's all right. So, yes, I mean, there's the Trump Tower meeting. There's a lot of questions, obviously. Like the Barr's report doesn't answer all the questions. It's a 4-page overall review of a massive, almost 2-year-long investigation. Doesn't answer everything. That being said, there's really only 3 ways we can look at this. I mean, A, Barr is lying. He's not telling us what is actually in there, and he's just twisting it. B, Mueller just flat out couldn't find it. What people were looking for, or C, Mueller is compromised. Like that's I can't.
I actually don't think any of those are the. I think that in 48 hours. We had some cherry-picked quotes from the Mueller report and the synopsis from some big conclusions. And I don't think that Barr lied, but I think that you can say, exact facts. My husband is currently going through the immigration process. He came here from Mexico. Those are facts.
Yep. And what race is your husband?
Yeah, he's not Mexican.
Yeah, exactly. So you can say those things, and that's true.
It's completely true.
Doesn't mean
but you are going to jump to the conclusion, like, oh, I married a Mexican immigrant, and I'm going through the immigration process, and it's out.
And I cannot count the number of people who have made that assumption just in general conversations I've seen you have online, Haley.
I mean, I told someone that my husband went to MIT and is a petroleum engineer here on a work visa, and then they hated me for months because they were like, you are dating or married to a jihadist, Muslim extremist.
So hilarious.
I get it all the time too, Haley, being married to a Jordanian.
Well, I mean, I'm married to someone from Sweden.
How dare you? Where's Drew at?
How dare you?
Yeah, well, eat your words, bitch.
So here, okay.
No, I have cousins that are Swedish too. So I just like.
Okay. And I also love you. I just want to.
Where in Sweden?
I don't know. Because they're half Swedish. Like their father's from Sweden.
But anyway, this brings up an important point.
Here's a thought. Like I think credibility can either be lended tremendously towards Barr's sentiment, or he can be completely undermined with transparency, with the release of the reports, which, as far as I can tell, at least from the Hangout here, everyone is in support of. Insofar as nothing, intelligence community damning wise,
release the report.
I'm not in favor of releasing it.
You're not?
No.
Are you saying that to just
limited?
Well, yeah. Not unredacted.
That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, not even that. I'm like, I think that only specific people should have access to it, or else the information is going to be totally just cockeyed by the time.
And I agree with you there, and I don't want to get too deep into that. But let's just cover the idea that it should be released as confidential information to Congress. Let it happen from there.
The question is, to me, can I trust Barr? I don't know if I can. I don't know. I'm not trying to assume I can't trust him, and I certainly don't assume I can.
I wouldn't say the words you can't trust him. I would say the words that reflective of the report? Probably not.
Trust but verify.
Yeah, I would.
And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to verify.
Words of Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, there you go.
Right. Well, and I think that one thing that a lot of people kind of have to kind of
go ahead. Sorry,
I think that a lot of things that a lot of people have to kind of think about as well is take a step back from this and recognize that as a country we have allowed for a massive expansion of executive authority, and I think that needs to be reined in. I mean, because for the last 20 years, presidents have wanted to. Congress has wanted to defer to the presidency so they don't take responsibility for it. And that's a complete problem within our system now. I mean, the president was never meant to have this much power and this much influence over our government.
I think that's a whole other can of worms.
And I 100% agree with what you're saying.
Aaron, I don't disagree either.
Yeah, I don't want to direct ire there.
Much of the political process has been punted to executive and judicial initiatives, right, and initial and interpretations of those bodies, rather than fighting legislative issues in the legislature. I completely agree with you there. However, that is a topic for another night. I'd like to get final thoughts from everybody. Yep. I don't know if you want to go down the line, or maybe Mike, we'll start with you and then move to the left on the bar here. Dead silence.
Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're trying to wrap up, man.
Yeah, we just want to wrap up.
If you want to give some final thoughts real quick.
Yeah, I mean, to me, the final thoughts that I can come up with is, I mean, yes, I want the report to be released redacted. I don't want to see innocent names labeled off. At the same time, 1 second. At the same time, it's just where I have a hard time seeing where Barr is going to just lie about what's in there, about what's in the report, and I just think that we should look at his report and think this is what his conclusions are, along with Rosenstein, along with others, and when the report actually comes out redacted, then we could just. I think we not only should we put this baby to rest, but we need to see exactly how this investigation started. Why is it that it took this much time, this much money, this many people to find nothing, to find no collusion, and that is what I think is going to be the outcome.
Sure, Haley.
She's muted currently.
Hold on. Sorry, what was that?
Final thoughts.
No, it's okay. Yeah, just final thoughts.
Oh, on the Barr thing, whenever I was a waitress in college, there was this one time when I was talking to a patron and was telling her about something I knew, and she said something that I've thought about a lot since then, which is, she said, I try not to formulate my own opinion about someone based on other people's opinions about them. And, of course, you would, sometimes that is something that you can't avoid. But at the end of the day, we haven't seen the report. I don't think anything in Barr's letter is a lie, but I am not going to hang any kind of hat on any sort of ultimate belief, ultimate fact on anything as true until I see what Mueller actually said, and try to formulate my own analysis based off of whatever I am privy to learn. And that's where I stand.
Right on. Drew?
You're not going to talk to the other guys first?
No, they're gonna come down.
We're moving down the line.
Yep.
Our line looks different, just so y'all know.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Drew, sorry, Drew. You're up next.
Well, I guess my view is that the truth has varying shades of gray. Barr might not be straight up lying, but I don't necessarily immediately come to the conclusion that he's being objectively true. I'd also like to say that the absence of evidence is not evidence of its absence. And I think that's a relevant point to look at.
I'm dabbing. I'm dabbing for you right now.
Stop.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean that's basically it. And I suppose that the rest should be that James McVeigh is basically Hitler.
Wow! Holy shit, dude! What?
And there's one thing we can all agree on.
Well, there goes your opinion. Your opinion's trash. Brandon /
retracted.
Aaron.
Brandon and Aaron. Yes, you're up.
Alrighty. So fundamentally, one can ascertain a few general judgments. The first thing being that generally it is within the realm of possibility that though Barr didn't necessarily lie, he could have used intentionally vague jargon to perhaps hide some more self-evident truths, which is within the realm of possibility. The other possibility is that Barr is just not going to take a risk, and he's just going to go ahead and just say what conclusions that he's been briefed on and just kind of go with that, because that would be perhaps politically expedient. And another point that I forgot to bring up earlier is, you want to know who else actually would gain quite a bit from all this Russia stuff? Halliburton, because they have huge oil contracts in all over Russia. I mean, they have an insane amount of oil contracts in that region. But generally, I'm going to defer to Aaron to kind of provide more closing thoughts.
Aaron.
He shouldn't do that. He should not do that. No. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for, I guess, the open invite.
Sure.
I think it's important that there's as much release as possible. I mean, I think that as much can be released that's not damaging, that doesn't compromise our intelligence and how information was gathered. We should, and then. I've always said from the beginning that, if Trump was a part of wrongdoing, he's not. No elected official should be above the law. I mean, and if he's ever been found of wrongdoing, if it comes up later that he's part of wrongdoing, then I think it's important for people to recognize that you can't just justify that. And then I think there has to be an acknowledgement that Barr could possibly skew information. I mean, he is an appointed person. Do I think he did? I'm sure he. Like Haley kind of said, he's probably spun this in a direction that was more positive to him, and so that's why I think the seeing the report for itself is important. And then I think the last thing I'd like to say is that, like, as a country, I mean, we have to come to a point where we're moving on, because this has been something that has been horribly divisive for our country, and I think we've been going down this divided road since about 2004. Where our country and our politics have just been becoming more and more. I mean, as people, we're able to talk and be able to get along, but Facebook has created a kind of a medium where we say things that we'd never probably say to someone face to face, and that's kind of created some polarizing political conversations. Other than that, I'm free of words.
Sure. Aaron, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
I want to jump in mine. I'm gonna let
Go ahead.
Out.
Go.
I really only have one interesting tidbit to add, and it's really
You're not helping, Mike.
It's really kind of off the wall, but it started with what Mike said. I think about the cost of this investigation, and I keep hearing about this over and over again, and it annoys the living shit out of me. And I apologize. This investigation paid for itself, and Mueller actually made money for the deal.
Oh yeah,
like by the millions. And I want to just give me a second.
Asset forfeiture.
No, not just asset forfeiture. As part of the plea deals is like fines and fees. Fuck asset forfeiture, because he's already. I mean, if we're gonna count asset forfeiture, he's probably 50 or 60 million in the black, but I mean, we're just a couple million.
I think the last time I checked, he was 44 million in the black.
And that involves.
Okay, let's not.
But I don't want to get involved in all of that. I want to point out the fact that guaranteed money, not stuff that's in the air over asset forfeiture or anything else, but money that people have pledged to actually pay. There's over $1 million in the black just on that.
That's the 44.
The 44 million just on. I pled guilty to this, and I guarantee I'll.
Manafort is paying 24.
Yeah, but the investigation is like 26 million cost.
Oh, so I read something recently. It was 44 million.
Anyway, but either way, like he's already in the black just on fines and fees. This investigation cost the American taxpayer nothing, and it actually made us money. Also, compared to the last 40 years of investigations we've had, this is the only one that's made us money. This is the only one that's been profitable. And not only has it been profitable to be like, oh my God, we're out here just stealing money from people. No, it's profitable because it was actually paid for by people who pleaded guilty, not people who had their assets stolen without a trial or without due process. This is not asset forfeiture. This is actually people who volunteered to give this money up as part of their plea deals or convictions. Like this is something that's completely different. I think that's extremely important to talk about. When I will tell you, the number one thing I've heard people complain about is this investigation didn't get us anything and it cost us millions of dollars. No, it actually didn't cost us a damn thing. It made us money. That's my takeaway.
Okay. So
is that not a bad precedent, though?
No, it's not actually. No, I mean, you just can't complain about something costing money when it didn't. And the reason it didn't cost money isn't because of asset forfeiture. It's because people actually pled guilty to problems and said, I owe this money back. Here it is.
Okay. My point is, let's take a bigger view of, what history will say about this investigation, decades from now, right? That we all had, our partisan motivations for wanting to see it happen or wanting to see it end. But it did what it was supposed to do. It was an investigation into certain wrongdoings and what have you with regards to the Russian influence campaign into the 2016 election. It did what it was supposed to do. It founded what it found to be accurate. Whether or not Barr has spun these results will and can be evidenced if it enough of this information is released publicly with regards to the report. I am open to that. Everyone we've spoken to tonight has been open to that. Whatever level of redaction is necessary to protect individuals, that we're okay with this. So this was a fact-finding thing, right? Personally, anyone who knows me at all knows I am strongly an anti-Trump individual. I don't want to see him reelected. This was never part of the strategy to keep him from being reelected in next year, 2020. No one should be experiencing anguish, what have you. It is, narrative-wise, it is going to be spun as a political victory for pro-Trump people, right-leaning people, what have you. And that's fine and good. Let's play that game if we need to play that game. Ultimately, though, Mueller will be remembered, I think, and I hope, as someone who did his job and went home. And that's all I had ever asked of this thing. And that was delivered. It wasn't a witch hunt. Because if it was, it found an awful lot of fucking witches. They're not, it's not Trump and collusion, rah, rah, rah. It's not the big smoking gun that everyone had framed this thing as it was supposed to be. But it found a lot of people doing things they weren't supposed to do. And people are going to jail for it now. People have been indicted for it now. That's what it's supposed to do. That's how justice is supposed to work. I am thoroughly happy with that. I think I would hope that we all are. And that's my takeaway from it is that if you created unrealistic expectations about what this was going to find, that's on you. That's your fault. Whatever your level of mental anguish that this wasn't we're going to impeach Trump now. No. Like if you were one of those people, this is a time for you to step back and reassess and ask yourself, what you should regard to be objectively true, free from bias. And if you're the person who thinks that, Trump is a golden god appointed here by God, to make America great again and what have you, and he's perfectly innocent and this and that. Like this report doesn't say that either. So I don't think anybody here represents either of those polarized ends. but both of those people are at fault, and both of those people need to do a little bit of
introspection.
Introspection. Thank you. I was about to say soul searching, but I think introspection is so much better. Time for
look, I use big words.
I know, right? Using those $4 words. I got a college education. It's too late to get my money back, so let's do that. So that is my take on it.
And I think that pretty much sums us up because I really don't want to go through a whole rebuttal session about this.
Yeah, no. It's not.
We're approaching an hour and a half at least.
Yeah,
if not 2 hours.
Oh, we could go on for another 2 hours if we really wanted to.
Easily, if we really wanted to.
Yeah, but
could we have a rebuttal that's presented by RJ against Mike? That's all I really
yes.
want.
Guys.
Yeah.
And RJ demurred, by the way.
We actually have to close this out. Can we close this out first and then make jokes when we're done?
Right. Okay, Aaron and Brandon are out anyway. I think we're all out, really.
Thank
you guys for joining us. Brandon, Aaron, Drew, Haley, Mike.
It's been a pleasure.
My cohort, Mr. McVeigh, and myself, David Piden. We are Fermenting Opinions. Our podcast, check us out, fermentingopinions.com. We're on YouTube, Facebook, public page, and private group for your ugly fermented opinions you don't want your neighbors and family to know about. Please come and share those with us. Shout out to our digital wizard, Ross James at jamesmedia.com. He makes all of this stuff work for us. So thank you very much, Jane. Or Ross. James. Thank you to him. And that said, it's time to play out with the outro music.
Anyway, he's David Biden. I'm James McVeigh. This has been Fermenting Opinions on the podcast with a bunch of our friends. Y'all have a great night. We're out.
All right. We'll see you next time.